Alright guys, this is pretty much our fourth model I think at this point. It's the loanable funds model. So we have the money market model, which we've dealt with previously, and that shows us an equilibrium interest rate. But there's actually another model that also shows us interest rates, and it is the loanable funds model. Make sure that you keep these two separate in your minds, that you can differentiate between the two. They're not the same, know what the question's asking you for, but each of them show us a way to determine the interest rate. Okay? Now let's start off with what we're talking about. We have real interest rate, again like in the money market model video. This could be real, it can also be nominal, so that's why I have it in parentheses here to kind of show that it doesn't always have to be real. In future videos I will probably usually label it as R for simply interest rate. According to the question and what you're being told to do will determine whether you label this axis real or nominal. Okay? Now our x-axis is going to be quantity of loanable funds. Quantity of loanable funds. So what we are talking about, funds that are available to be loaned or to be lent. Okay? So what we kind of do here is we're simplifying things. We think about the way that people borrow money. That's what we're talking about, loanable funds, money that's available to be borrowed. So if you wanted to go and buy a car, so you want to buy a $25,000 car, you only have $4,000, are you able to do that? And the answer is probably if you have decent credit. The way that you would do that is you would take out a loan from a bank. It's the same way people buy houses that they don't have enough money for. They don't actually have $300,000. The bank gives them a loan. So that would be an example of a loanable fund. There are also, without going too far down this because it's available otherwise, other places, the way that the government borrows money, because the government also borrows money. They do so by selling bonds, which again, that's a topic from earlier in the year, earlier in the course. When the government sells bonds, that is the way that they borrow money. So they sell a bond, we buy that bond, so we buy a $1,000 bond. That is us letting the government borrow $1,000, which they owe back to us at the date of maturity on that bond. Alright, now for simplicity's sake, we're going to put all of the different types of ways that you can borrow money onto one model here, and it's going to be the loanable funds market. So we're assuming that all borrowers and all savers of money are put together in one simple place. So rather than bank to bank or country to country or whatever the case is, this is a representation of all loanable funds available in an economy. The only other things to talk about in this introduction, like I said, this is just an introduction, we're not shifting anything at this point in time. We see that it gives us, we have a supply of loanable funds and we have the demand for loanable funds. Where those two intersect is going to be our equilibrium interest rate, equilibrium quantity of loanable funds. The quantity really isn't that important, to tell you the truth. The interest rate is what matters the most. So the last thing I want to do, and this is important, and this is the thing to keep in mind about our loanable funds model, is what is represented by the supply for loanable funds and the demand, or supply of loanable funds and the demand for loanable funds. Our supply of loanable funds, that is people who are lending money. So the supply of loanable funds is generated by savers. So what we would put here, supply of loanable funds is savers slash lenders. People who are borrowing the money. I said that wrong. People who are lending the money. Supply of loanable funds, savers and lenders, the people who are allowing someone else to borrow money. So this is the lenders, savers slash lenders. On the other hand, the people who have demand for loanable funds, that's the people who want to borrow. So the person, if you were going to buy a new car, you would have demand for loanable funds. The bank would be part of the supply curve. So where that meets the supply and the demand for loanable funds will be our equilibrium interest rate. So we obviously have to talk about what would cause each of these to shift to make the interest rates go up and down, and that's what the next video will do. Alright? Till next time, this has been a La Money production.